Welcome back to Sunday Report. This past week, the president's first son, Hunter Biden, filed a lawsuit against the IRS. Washington Post is reporting Hunter is claiming his privacy rights as a taxpayer were violated by two service whistleblowers. Let's bring in one of the attorneys for one of those whistleblowers, Mark Lytle. He joins us. He's an attorney for whistleblower Gary Shapley. Mark, what was your reaction when you heard that Hunter Biden filed a lawsuit?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on this morning. The reaction to the lawsuit is disappointment and a little bit of outrage. It's really an attempt to intimidate and smear whistleblowers who've come forward in a profile and courage. But it's a pattern of conduct by Hunter Biden's lawyers. And some of the documents that have come out in connection with the whistleblower disclosures reveal that the pattern started back with Chris Cook, another attorney for Hunter Biden, and Abby Lowell when they went to the Department of Justice. And they threatened the tax division attorneys that if they were to file charges against their client, that it would be a career suicide for them. And then they threatened in a way that, now special counsel Weiss, that if he did charge Hunter Biden, that it would be a lasting legacy against him. Now, these are threats on their face, but when they come from the lawyers for the son of the President of the United States, who's the head of the executive branch, including, by way of that, the head of the Department of Justice, that's pretty intimidating. But we're not going to be deterred. The whistleblowers are standing strong, and they want to speak and talk about what they believe were things that were inconsistent with their 14 multiple years of experience as law enforcement agents.
Now, with Hunter Biden now being charged with these 3 felony gun charges, but we go back to the testimony this week where Merrick Garland was being pressed, and it came up several times that if not for the whistleblower testimony, we wouldn't be here in this position. Jim Jordan brought that up several times. He says their reporting has always maintained that it's been the same all along. But now you look at this and where this is going. Now you have the president's son facing felony charges on a gun charge, potentially more charges coming forward. I just want to get the reaction from your client, Gary Shapley. How does he feel that right now his testimony is exposing all of this?
Well, as you recall, this case has been investigated for over 5 years, and Gary Shapley and the other whistleblower, Joe Ziegler, they testified in front of the House Oversight Committee on July 19th. Consistent with their non-public testimony in their transcribed interview before the House Ways and Means Committee. And they've detailed a long litany of actions by the prosecutors in preventing them from taking the natural steps that an investigative an agent like them would follow. I'm a long-term former federal prosecutor. I worked in the tax division. The real mantra is to follow the money, and wherever it goes, wherever it leads. In this case, they wanted to follow money because there were some indications that President Biden was involved, and the prosecutors stopped them. And they wanted to do a search warrant of the Biden guest house, and that was stopped. And there are other examples raised where they were, there were obstacles put in place of the agents in front of them, and they weren't able to pursue the evidence. And when they saw this, especially Gary Shapley, his 14 years as an IRS line agent, highly regarded, well-rewarded agent in law enforcement. When he saw this, that was totally different from what others, what his career reflected and what he'd seen with prosecutors. And he wanted to step forward and talk about it.
Mark,
he did so properly.
I want to get your reaction. Just last question here before I let you go. Hunter Biden, his defense in this gun charge is his lawyer, Abby Lowell, as you brought up, he's saying that it's unconstitutional, that these charges will likely get thrown out before this ever goes to trial. Do you agree with that? Do you think that it is, again, they're going back to a Supreme Court ruling in that defense, but it looks bad for President Biden, who's about gun regulations. And now you have Hunter Biden basically saying, well, I'm going to try and get off or get these charges thrown out on a technicality on a Supreme Court ruling. What do you make of that defense?
I don't think it's going to be found unconstitutional. I disagree with them on that front. And the 3 counts really, although they refer to sort of the same activity, they really target different offenses, if you will. One is there's forms. There's an ATF form 4473 that every gun purchaser has to complete, and there's a series of questions they have to answer yes or no to, and those questions determine whether they're a prohibited person from purchasing a firearm. And in this case, one of the questions is, are you using drugs? Are you addicted to drugs? Are you currently on drugs? Those types of questions. He answered no. And so he's charged with a false statement in that regard. Now, the case that was thrown out in the Fifth Circuit in Louisiana that was held unconstitutionally as applied to those facts, there was no evidence submitted to show that the defendant in that case was addicted to drugs or on drugs at the time he purchased the weapon. In this case, Hunter Biden's already written a book and admitted he was on drugs that entire time. So I don't think that argument's going to apply here.
Yeah. Mark, Lytle, appreciate you coming on. Great to have you. Happy Sunday to you. We'll catch up with you again. We'll continue to follow this story.
Thanks again. Have a great day.